All right. The season is upon us. Time to get going. We need to keep our brains focused on rules adjudication so we can get plays right when we get onto the court. Let's go. Greetings and welcome back to the Basketball Rules Expert, the show where we take National Federation of High School Basketball rules and we lift them off the printed page. We breathe life into them, simplify, clarify, and amplify so that we can take the rules with us onto the court where it is most important. Greetings again, everybody. My name is Greg Austin with betterofficial.com. I've been a high school basketball official here in the San Francisco Bay Area for over a decade. I consider myself to be a basketball rules expert, and this show is all about helping you on a journey to becoming a basketball rules expert as well. Allow me a moment to thank our fantastic channel supporters: Sue Mahakian, Bart Henkel, Thomas Anticola, Mark Skolnick, and Bill D'Amico. Much appreciated and much love. You want to support the show? You know there's going to be a link in the show notes below. Thank you. All right, so today we are looking at straight up test questions, right? We're taking tests this time of year. We always want to be in the rules book. We always want to, get access to quizzes and things that can test us. Sometimes we'll get into a pregame with a partner and they say, hey, I had this situation in our game. What's the correct adjudication, etc. And we want to be able to respond in the moment, right? I can identify this is the correct ruling, right? Either because I have rules knowledge or I have case play knowledge or I have all of the things. But we need to be able to make those decisions quickly, right? And test questions can really help us in that pursuit. All right. Today we are looking at test questions. Let's get started and take a look at our very first question. On a designated spot throw-in, the thrower may jump, pivot, or shuffle their feet as long as a foot is kept on or above the 3-foot area. The thrower must keep 1 foot on or over the spot until the ball is released. A, correct. B, incorrect. Well, now, I really like the format of this question. Not a lot of reading for me. On a designated spot throw-in. So, designated spot throw-ins. We know designated spot throw-ins can be confusing for some people who have some antiquated perception of what a thrower is allowed to do, right? They move their feet. They're traveling ref, right? Uneducated stakeholders in the game may have confusion about this, but it's really simple. A designated spot is not a spot. It's not a circle. It is an area that's 3 feet wide, starts from the edge of the court and goes all the way back until we run out of room, and a thrower must simply keep one of their feet above the throw-in area, designated spot, throw-in area, 1 foot, right? So they can, here's their 2 feet, and they can step this far, and then they can step this far as long as they're keeping their feet above that throw-in area until the release of the throw-in pass. Once the throw-in pass is released, they are free to move anywhere. They are responsible to come onto the court after the release of that throw-in pass. But our answer on this play, are you ready for it? Is A, correct. Ooh, animation. Okay. All right, let's take a look at our very next test question. A non-contact foul which consists of unfair, unethical, or dishonorable contact is A, or an A, intentional foul, B, unsporting foul, C, common foul, or D, none of the above. Right? Key component, non-contact foul, unfair, unethical, dishonorable. To have an intentional foul, we must have contact. To have a common foul, we must have contact. Right? This is pretty straightforward. It's an unsporting foul. Would be the correct answer, B. Right? This would be a technical foul by rule, since it is not a contact foul. That's really straightforward. Awesome. Let's look at our very next test question. A1 dunks over B1 and then taunts B1. B1 retaliates and throws a punch at A1. The ruling is A warning should be issued to these two players. B, A1 is issued an unsporting technical and B1 is issued a flagrant technical. C, both players are issued unsporting technical fouls. Or D, both are charged with flagrant technicals. Right? So we have the dunk. Player turns to the defender and taunts them. This is certainly an attribute of AAU basketball where there's stare downs and I have abused you, and behavior towards the defender who may have been, just crushed on the play. But in a retaliatory action after the taunt, a punch is thrown, right? Whether it connects or not, matters not. Now what do we have, right? We have a taunting and then we have a punch, right? If we understand the rules, this is really straightforward, but sometimes we can be confused here. So our options are warning should be issued. No, that is not the answer. That is no. B, A1 is issued an unsporting technical and B1 is issued a flagrant. So that would seem logical. This player had a non-contact foul, that's a technical. And this player had a punch, that's a flagrant, right? That seems logical, but NFHS puts an exception into the rule, or both players are issued unsporting technicals. No, if a punch is thrown, that is flagrant, fighting, disqualified by rule. That's really straightforward. A punch is thrown, that is fighting. Flagrant, disqualified, that's really straightforward. So in D, both are charged with flagrant technicals, and that's the correct answer. The taunting led to a fight. Therefore, the taunting is considered in the same category, a fighting action by rule. So our correct answer here is D. Both are charged with flagrant technical fouls for fighting as well. And it's really important because while it doesn't have any impact in the game itself, for proper adjudication, right, the local association or et cetera may have actions that are related to fighting. If a player is ejected or disqualified for fighting, there may be additional penalties. They're going to miss the next game. They're going to miss the 2 games. A second fighting action will lead to, disqualification from competing in future games or some such. So the designation for fighting is important in that scenario. So our correct answer is D. Both are charged with flagrant technicals. And I'm going back here. All right, let's move on. No. I've got to get my systems together here. And let's take a look at our next question. A1 drives to the basket, releases the ball for a try, and then contacts B1. The basket is made, or the goal is scored, or is it? Double whistle between lead and center. Lead signals a block. Center signals a charge. The correct procedure is... Dun, dun, dun. The dreaded Blarge, and the ball goes in. What do we do now, right? This is one of the reasons why we have these videos and have these situations. If this occurs to your game and you don't know the correct answer, sorting it out is going to be a challenge, right? So let's look at our answers. A, both officials report their foul, basket is counted, then play resumes. B, lead and center get together to decide whose primary call it is, and that official reports only their foul. Or C, both officials report their foul and the basket is not counted. Right? So we're either going to report both fouls, score the goal, report both fouls, no goal, or we're going to negotiate and see, all right, hey, I have this, but I have, I'm the primary official on the play, so we're going to go with my call. NCAA women, that is the correct procedure. But NCAA men and high school, that is not the correct procedure. We have a double foul in this situation. By rule, we have a double foul. If we understand that it's a double foul, then that can really help with our adjudication of the play because we know things about double fouls. We know that when a double foul occurs, does that cause the ball to become dead? Right? That's a straightforward question. Does the ball become, right? If we had a charge on its own, the ball becomes dead immediately. If we have a defensive foul, right, on releasing the try, defensive foul, does the ball become dead on the foul? No, the ball is still alive. It can score. When we have a double foul, does the ball become dead immediately, in which case we'd have no goal? That's what we need to know. Always need to know status. And of course, knowing status is an important step for young officials and all officials. Knowing, understanding status. Is the ball live? Is the ball dead? Inbounds, out of bounds, backcourt, frontcourt, team control, no team control, player control, no player control, right? If we know these things and focus on an awareness of these things and the rules that outline them, then we are really empowered to make good quality rules adjudication. So on this play, we have a double foul by rule. And when we have a double foul, the ball is not dead until, in this instance, the result of the try. So in this instance, we're going to report both fouls and we are going to score the goal. Understand that. We would resume play with an end line throw-in to the opponent after the made basket or after the scored goal. All right, so our correct answer, A. Both officials report their foul. Basket is scored. Goal is scored. I really prefer that language. Goal is scored. Then play resumes with an end line throw-in. Understanding is what we have on this play is not a charge. On a player control foul, the ball becomes dead and no goal can be scored, right? That's a great understanding to have, but understanding what we have in this situation is a double foul. It's a little non-intuitive because there's a charge involved, right? But it's not a charge by rule. We are now a double foul. And when we have a double foul, things can get really simple. Ball's not dead. We're going to resume with point of interruption, right? So the same play happens and the try misses. How are we going to resume the game? We're going to report fouls on both. And we had a try for goal, no team control. So we would go to the alternating possession arrow for the resulting throw-in, right? The goal is scored. That's our point of interruption. And we would go end line. So understanding that in this situation, in a Blarge situation, it is a double foul by rule. That makes things really simple and straightforward, even though it can seem a little non-intuitive. Just hold on to that strongly. Double foul. I know what we do in a double foul. Point of interruption, right? Ball was not dead. Point of interruption. If we're going to have a full understanding of rules, it's a great approach when we have play scenarios like this, that we say, okay, here's the scenario, right? What's the obvious next question, right? What if the try is unsuccessful, right? That's a great way to approach these because it adds extra value from the question, right? This question deals with one situation specifically, but what if instead of this happened, right? And this can give us a better understanding of the rules so that when we get onto the court, yeah, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. I know these rules. Sheesh. Yeah. Let's take a look at our next question. A1 has the ball and is about to attempt the first free throw of a 1-and-1 bonus. B1 steps into the lane prior to the release of the attempt. Although the action is unintentional, the distraction causes A1's attempt to miss the ring. How would we administer this play? A. Since the act was unintentional, both violations are penalized. Go to the AP arrow to determine which team is entitled to an AP throw-in. B. An air ball takes precedence over a lane violation. Team A gets an end-line throw-in. C. Call an unsporting technical foul on B1 for disconcerting the shooter. Or D. Since the distraction caused the shooter to shoot an air ball, ignore the violation by A1 and only penalize the delayed violation by B1. Okay, quite a spectrum of possible answers here and a lot of words. Come on now. All right, so we have a question about was B1's action was unintentional, right? We've seen the clip. You know that one where the player loses their balance and they start waving their hands in an effort to save themselves from falling and then fall face first into the lane. It's humorous, right? It was absolutely unintentional, and the thrower's maybe cracking up and then releases a try and misses the ring, right? Or B, an air ball takes precedence, right? One of the violations takes precedence over the other. Unsporting technical for disconcertion, is that a thing? D, since the distraction caused the shooter to shoot an air ball, ignore the violation by A1, right? So understanding free throw rules is really important. We've covered it previously. Free throws present unique situations in the game. And it's an opportunity for us to mentally take a little me time. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. And lose focus on the game, right? This is a relatively unique situation. But one, if we know the rules and restrictions regarding free throws, is really straightforward. So disconcertion, whether unintentional or not, results in a replacement free throw by the thrower. So this is the first of 1-and-1. We would ignore the violation by the thrower. Don't know how we got there. We would ignore the violation by the thrower. Due to disconcertion, we would reward a replacement free throw. Our correct answer in this situation is D. Since the distraction caused the shooter to shoot an air ball, ignore the violation by the shooter, and only penalize the delayed violation by B1. And it's important to understand that it is a replacement throw. So in this situation, it was the first of a 1-and-1. It would be a replacement first of 1-and-1. If that throw was unsuccessful, the game would continue. If that throw was successful, then the player would be rewarded or awarded a subsequent free throw attempt. It's not always, apples to apples coordination between rules and casebook. And if you think about it, fundamentally, you've got a rules book and a casebook, and you have to keep it updated. There's changes in language. It's easy for things to get left behind and for discrepancies to occur between the two, right? Emphasis on rules book language. Rules book language, you officials, when you communicate. from NFHS, right? Really the finger wag. We can't have these, these terms being used. And then you open up the case book and it's filled with the terms, right? One of the inconsistencies. But of course, here at A Better Official, we really focus on communication and communicating the correct things and using the correct language to do that when appropriate. But the ultimate end is communication. And sometimes if we're communicating with a player, that's the last thing we want to do is use rules book language, right? We want to communicate with them. Communication involves understanding, right? How can we say words out of our mouth so that this individual will understand me, right? And sometimes we can hide behind rules book language in an inappropriate setting. Now, if we have a rules adjudication on a play, right, we have a player technical foul by rule, subsequent throw in at this spot, et cetera, or whatever we're going to do on a ruling, now we're breaking out rules book language. We're pulling that out of our toolbox or our, like Batman, the TV, my utility belt, I'm pulling it out. Here it is. Never establish legal guarding position, right? Establish, but then you move forward or whatever we need to use that's correct by rule. I'm going there and I'm going here to say, let's look at another test question. A1 rebounds the ball and holds it securely under the chin while being aggressively guarded by B1. Without contacting B1, A1 pivots and swings his or her elbows such that the elbows move faster than the speed of the torso. What is the correct ruling? A, intentional foul on A1. B, flagrant foul on A1. C, no violation. Or D, violation on A1. We see this situation occur a lot. Player grabs a rebound, right? Coach says, chin it, right? So they have their elbows out. Keep your elbows in. Elbows out. They are guarded. There's pressure, defensive pressure, and in an effort to protect the basketball, they swing their elbows, right? If they do so while moving their torso, that's one thing. But if they move the elbows independently of the torso, that is something else. So in this situation, A1 rebounds the ball, holds it securely without contacting B1. So there's no contact on the play. That's a key component here. If we had contact, that would be something else. But we have no contact on the play. So by rule, in this situation, this is a violation for excessively swinging the elbows, right? In the absence of contact, a violation is the correct ruling. If contact occurs, then we have something else. So something that shows up order, Billy Mack points out, is there's 3 new casebook plays that specifically address player moving and elbow contact as a result. We can have common, intentional, or flagrant. All 3 of those are available. And those case plays, because we know that a point of emphasis a few years ago in National Federation of High School Basketball rules, point of emphasis, hey, elbow contact to the head automatically upgraded, at least intentional, automatic, right? That was the point of emphasis. Something we have to understand about points of emphasis is they can be fleeting, right? We have a point of emphasis, right? This is a thing. A few years ago, it was like when players come onto the court from the locker room, they can't circle their opponent. This is a grave violation of the rules. Is it in the rules book? No, there's no rule against that, right? It's just a point of emphasis, right? So that point of emphasis about elbow contact led to confusion that that contact automatically rises to an intentional foul at minimum. So those case plays hopefully will clarify things a lot. Let's take a look now at another rules question. A1's three-point try is successful. B2, who is inbounds, secures the ball after it passes through the basket and tosses to teammate B3, who is also inbounds. B3, believing that his teammate had made a legal throw-in to him, begins dribbling up the court towards his team's basket. The correct action is to issue a technical foul for delay of game as soon as the ball passes the division line, then put time back on the clock to allow for the number of seconds that elapsed since the throw-in should have taken place. That's creative. B, after giving Team B sufficient time to recognize its error, whistle the play dead and instruct Team B to execute a legal throw-in from the end line. C, whistle the play dead and rule a throw-in violation. Or D, when it is apparent that a player from Team B is advancing the ball towards its basket instead of stepping out of bounds for a throw-in, initiate a 5-second count and rule a violation if a legal throw-in is not begun and ended within the time allowed by rule. Okay, a lot of words there. First of all, A is off the table. Come on now. Come on, we're making stuff up there. But it's a unique situation, right? And how are we going to adjudicate this play at the high school level? How are we going to adjudicate it by rule? Of course, that's what we always want to know is how do we adjudicate this play by rule? If we're doing a little kids game, pee-wee basketball, and the kids, make this knucklehead move, are we going to, do it by rule? Maybe not. But in high school basketball, we want to know how to do things by rule. And in this situation, our correct answer is C. Whistle the play dead and rule a throw-in violation by rule, right? Specified by rule, really straightforward. We don't have to overthink this, right? The throw-in has not legally occurred. Now you can make a case, well, the throw-in has not legally begun, right? Because, maybe the official never began a count, etc. But this is covered specifically by rule. Pretty straightforward. Violation on the play, resulting throw-in for the opponent at the spot nearest the violation, which would be, I guess, when that first pass was made. It's going to be an end-line throw-in any way you slice it. So we're going to move on now to our next test question. An official calls held ball. The possession arrow points to Team A. The official inadvertently gives the ball to B1 for a throw-in. Official can't correct this error once the official starts their throw-in count. B, B1 releases the ball for a throw-in. C, the official gives the ball to B1. Or D, B2 touches the throw-in pass. Right? So, held ball, we're going to the possession arrow for the resulting throw-in. The official hands the ball to a player from the wrong team, and the throw-in has begun. The ball has been made live. At what point can we recognize this mistake before we can no longer fix this mistake? And this is specifically outlined by rule. There could be logical things, and again, how are we going to adjudicate this play? We want to know how to adjudicate the play by rule, okay? In this instance, the officials have until the throw-in has ended to correct this situation. So, we've given the ball to the wrong player, the official starts their throw-in count. Throw-in restrictions apply, but has the throw-in ended? No. And of course, with the 3 restarts in the game of basketball, we need to understand when does it start and when does it end, because the restrictions that are brought in, special set of rules and restrictions, brought in only apply during that time. And during that time, There's a start and an end, and there's restrictions on players, and sometimes there's an interim restriction reduced. A throw-in is released. The defender may now violate the plane once the throw-in is released, right? So some of our restrictions go away at some point, and then when it ends, all of our restrictions. So understanding that there are special rules and restrictions, we have to know when it starts and when it ends. Okay, so when we've given the ball to the thrower and we begin a count, right, the throw-in has not ended. B1 releases the ball for a throw-in. The throw-in has not ended. Or C, when the official gives the ball, makes the ball live, the throw-in has just begun. It certainly hasn't ended. Our correct answer here, though, is D. When B2 touches the throw-in pass legally, right? There's a little room in this question for something different. But when the ball is touched legally in bounds, that throw-in has ended. Let's say, right? So again, we're using our principle here of, okay, here's the question, here's the answer. Great, let's move on. No, what if the player kicked the ball, right? Which is not illegal touching. Then could we fix it, right? And this is a great approach to developing our rules knowledge. Here's the question, here's the answer, really straightforward. What's sort of like the variation, the logical variation of the play? What if the thrower violated? How would we handle that? Great approach that can help us have a better understanding of the rules of high school basketball. Our answer here on this one is B2 touches the throw-in pass. That would end the throw-in, and by rule, once the throw-in has ended in this situation, our opportunity to fix the official's error has ended. By rule. Straightforward. It's outlined specifically. But let's take a look at our very next test question. B1 fouls A1 in the act of shooting a three-point try. While the ball is in the cylinder above the ring, A2 makes contact with the ball prior to the ball entering the basket. Which of the following is true? A. A2's action was a goaltending violation. It cancels the score and results in a designated spot throw-in by Team B. B. A2 has committed offensive basket interference, and the score shall be canceled. A1 shall be awarded 3 free throws. C. If A2's contact with the ball was part of a dunk, score the basket and award A1 1 free throw. D. Play on. No violation has occurred. Enforce the penalty for the foul in the act of shooting by awarding A1 1 free throw. These are creative answers. Okay, so let's just review. We have a try for goal, a three-point try for goal, and our shooter is fouled. While the ball is in the cylinder above the ring, A2 makes it. So let's say the ball bounces on the ring. It's there. A2 contacts the basketball in the cylinder prior to the ball entering the basket. And I guess this implies that ultimately the ball enters the basket. So what do we have in this situation? Right? Now, we talked about live ball, dead ball, right? Try is released, foul by a defender. The ball is still live, right? It has an opportunity to go in. We have an illegal touching by the player. Is that touching goaltending or basket interference, right? Many times the issue can be a moot point. It doesn't really matter because they're both going to be penalized the same, but understanding them is important. To contact the basket, the ball while it is in the cylinder is a basket interference, a violation by rule. Remember, contacting the basket while the ball in the cylinder is not necessarily a violation by rule. But in this instance, it would not be goaltending. If we look at C, A2's contact with the ball was part of a dunk, score the basket, and award A1 one free throw. Come on now. We have to understand when a try ends by rule, right? That's creative. Play on. No violation has occurred. Enforce the penalty for the foul in the act of shooting by awarding A1 one free throw. Come on now. Our correct answer here is B. A2 has committed offensive basket interference, and the score shall be canceled. The goal shall be canceled. A1 shall be awarded 3 free throws, right? There's no one free throw in this situation, right? Now, if there was no violation and the ball went in, we're going to score the goal and award 1 free. But in this situation, A2 has committed basket interference by rule, thus ending the try by rule. So since no goal was scored, 3 free throws for the offended player, and we would resume at that point. And now, let's look at our next rules question. After the toss to start the game or overtime period, 2 non-jumpers cause the ball to go out of bounds simultaneously. The proper procedure is re-jump with 2 players involved at the nearest jump circle, re-jump with the original jumpers at the center circle. C, re-jump with 2 players involved at the center jump circle. Or D, re-jump with original jumpers at the nearest jump circle. Well, in high school basketball, unlike the NBA, we only use the center circle for jump balls. I guess back in the day, there used to be jumps all over, in each of the 3 spots. High school basketball, it's only the center circle, so that gets rid of those choices. And the question is, well, we're going to use the original jumpers on the play, or we're going to use the players who are involved in the simultaneous touching and causing the ball to go out of bounds. And our correct answer here is C, re-jump with the 2 players involved at the center jump circle. That's a really straightforward play. Doesn't need a lot of verbiage. Let's move on now to our next rules question. While bringing the ball up the floor under pressure in the backcourt, A1 releases the ball for a pass to A2 in the front court. The covering official's count is at 9 seconds when the ball is released, but before the count reaches 10, the ball bounces in the front court. After the count reaches 10, the bounce pass is caught by A2. Is this legal? A, this is not legal. The ball must be touched by any player in the front court before the count reaches 10. B, this is not legal. The ball must be controlled by a Team A player in the front court before the count reaches 10. C, this is legal. The ball must take on front court status before the count of 10. It did that when it touched the court prior to being caught by A2. And D, this is legal. As with the 5-second count for throw-ins, as long as the ball has been released before the count of 10, it is not a 10-second violation. Okay, understanding the 10-second violation is the first part of the equation here. We need to understand what the rule is and what is a violation in this situation. The offensive team has, to the official's count of 10, for the ball to gain front court status. And how does a ball gain front court status, right? We talked previously, understanding status is critical to our making a proper adjudication of plays on the court. And it's a super important area for young officials and all officials to have a clear understanding of. And if you do, you are in a great position to adjudicate plays. So if we understand that the count continues until the ball gains front court status, then we know whether or not a violation has occurred. How does a ball gain front court status? Understanding, a player is dribbling in the backcourt. The ball has backcourt status. A player picks up the ball. The ball has backcourt status. The player releases a pass towards the front court. The ball has backcourt status. The ball passes through the plane of the division line or some such. The ball has backcourt status. What causes the ball to gain front court status? The ball contacting the floor in the front court would cause the ball to gain front court status, or to be touched by a player who had front court status. Those would cause the ball to gain front court status. So in this situation, our responsibility by the offensive team is for the ball to gain front court status prior to the official's count reaching 10. When the ball contacted the floor, in this instance, that occurred. So our correct answer is C. It is legal because it gained front court status before the count of 10. And it did so when it touched the court prior to being caught by A2. Understanding the rule that the offensive team must cause the ball to be in the front court, to no longer be in the backcourt, by the official's count of 10. That's the rule, so it needs to gain front court status. How it gains front court status is a critical component we need to have as basketball officials. It's like a block of cheese, right? You look at a beautiful block of cheese made in Italy. It's got that coating on the outside. It's great. And then they cut it open, right? And there's some holes in the cheese from bubbles and fermenting and all that. If you look at the cheese from the side where the plastic or the coating is, it looks solid. But when you turn it sideways, there's a little hole in my rules knowledge. And everybody has them. Everybody has holes in their rules knowledge. That's just a fact of life. So we see that, and we take care of all those holes. We fill it in with our rules knowledge, and then we rotate the slice of cheese one more time, and we see the other side, more holes. So you have an explorer of the rules. We find areas where we have some weakness. We did not know that thing, whatever it is, we fill that in. We learn that rule. Sometimes we learn the hard way. We're out on the court. We adjudicate a play. We go back into the locker room. We look it up and we say, right? And in those situations, that understanding the rule is it's seared in a little bit when we kick plays and learn from that. But so hopefully we can learn here and avoid that process. All right, let's move on to our next test question. The game ball supplied by the home team has a major sports brand logo, but no NFHS authenticating mark. The referee should issue a team technical foul on the home team prior to the start of the game and play with the illegal ball. B, seek a legal game ball from the home team or the visiting team if the home team doesn't have one. C, use a boys ball if the NFHS if it has the authenticating mark, or D, use the ball and don't make a big deal out of it, but report the situation to the state association after the game. I love the answers here. Okay, so it is a requirement in NFHS that the NFHS authenticating mark is on the basketball. There is no penalty. The home team is responsible to supply a game ball. If the home team does not have a game ball that would be appropriate, let's say it was a girls' game and all they had was boys' balls, balls that had the dimension that are for boys, right? The obvious solution here is to go to the visiting team and find a legal ball for the teams to use. Right? So our correct answer in this is obviously B. Seek a legal game ball from the home team or the visiting team if the home team doesn't have one. Right? Okay, great. Test question. We answered it. We are really good. All right, well, wait a minute. What's the next logical possibility? What if neither team has a legal ball? What are we going to do, right? If we have situations in our game where, such as this, what do the teams want you to do? What are the teams here for, right? They're here to play the game. We have to find a way to get this game going and to play this game. We're going to do all the things to find the correct solution. But if we, in the absence of a ball without an authenticating mark, in that situation, what are we going to do? We're going to play the game with the ball that we have. Come on now. Now we can make a note and send it to an assigner or the appropriate governing body. We can inform the coach that what their requirement is. You know, it's kind of like, let's say we have a girls' game and we have a safety violation because the padding that's required by rule on the backboard is uncovered and there's some sharp edges on the side. And now if this was a boys' game with high-flying players, we're going to say, wait a minute, no, we're going to fix that. We have to fix that before the game. We have a girls' game where that's not going to come into play. Common sense prevails, and then we're going to make a note of this. Hey, you need to fix that, but do we have to fix it for the game, right? So another example of that. So in this situation, our correct answer is B. Seek a legal game ball from the home team or the visiting team if the home team doesn't have one. Really straightforward, common sense. It's not a requirement for the home team to supply the game ball. They are supposed to, but in the absence of a legal ball, we're going to find one someplace else. Maybe it's a kid in the stands. Hey, let me see that ball. We need to use that. Let's look at our next question. A2, let's say A1's try for goal is within the basket as A2, in attempt to rebound the ball, unintentionally grabs the net. The officials rule cancel the basket, goaltending, cancel the basket, administrative technical foul for grabbing the net, cancel the basket, basket interference, or D, score the goal, ignore grabbing of the net, play on. So we have a try for goal. A player attempting to rebound the ball unintentionally grabs the net. The officials have to make a ruling on this play. Understand that the try for goal is within the basket by A2. If we understand the rules of basket interference, we know that if the ball is in or on the basket may not be touched by any player. In or on. So if the ball is on top of the ring, it is sitting on the ring momentarily. Obviously, it's not going to stay there. It's going to fall one way or another. If it's in contact with the ring, which is part of the basket, understanding the definition of the basket is the basket, the flange, and the net. This constitutes the basket is the ring, the flange, and the net. That, by rule, is the basket. Players are not allowed to contact the basket while the ball is on or in. So in this situation, our correct answer is C. Cancel the basket for basket interference. Contacting the net while the ball is on or in the basket is basket interference by rule. By any player. In this instance, it was a teammate, so we would cancel. The ball became dead at that point. No goal can be scored. All right, time for another question. Let's go. A player may not use arms, hands, hips, or shoulders to force his or her way through a screen or to hold the screener and then push aside a screener in order to... That's the wrong button. maintain a guarding position, gain an advantage, steal the ball, or cause a turnover? That's an oddly phrased question. Let's just see what our answer is. All right, so a player is not allowed to fight their way through a screen, hold, hook, grab, etc. Defensive players are responsible to avoid screens in order to get around them. Obviously, there's going to be some gray area when we have contact in this situation described, but our correct answer is A, maintain a guarding position. Not my favorite question. Let's move on to another question. After a made basket by Team B, Team A is granted a timeout. On the ensuing throw-in, all 5 Team A players are lined up off the court behind Team B's end line at the time the official wants to administer the throw-in. A, the official shall refuse to administer the throw-in until the required 4 team members of the thrower have inbound status. B, this tactic merits a 4-47 warning for delay for violating Article 4 of that rule. If there had been any 4-47 warning issued previously, this would result in a team technical pursuant. C, this is legal as long as the throw-in pass is released prior to the end of the official's 5-second count. Or D, this is permissible both for a designated spot throw-in as well as a throw-in after a made or awarded basket. Okay, so a basket has been scored by Team B. Team A requests and is granted a timeout. How are we going to resume the game? We're going to resume the game with a throw-in that's not a designated spot throw-in. Player can move anywhere along the end line. In a situation where we are administering a throw-in after a goal, right, or there is a throw-in after a goal, we need to know the rules and restrictions on the players, right? Understanding, as we like to say, understanding throw-in rules and restrictions has high value for basketball officials because there are 3 restarts in the game. Jump ball happens 1 time a game. Free throws happen a couple of dozen times a game. In a game, sometimes 3 dozen, sometimes in worst case scenario more. But what happens most frequently? Throw-ins happen frequently. Throw-ins happen frequently, and a lot of things can occur on throw-ins. So what we need to do is have a clear understanding of what is illegal. If we know what's illegal, then we can see, observe and say, okay, that's wild and interesting and okay, but I'm waiting for the little alarm in my head that says that's a violation. You cannot do that. The defender cannot reach through the throw-in plane. On a designated spot, the thrower cannot, fail to have one of their feet above the spot, right? They cannot be the first to touch. All of the things, right? If we know what's illegal, then we're in a great position to see all sorts of things occur potentially and not respond with a reflex of, oh, that looks funny, I have to blow my whistle, right? That looks funny, that's unique, I've never seen that, okay? Right, so we have to have that perspective. And in this situation, we are after a scored goal. So what are the restrictions after a scored goal on the team for a throw-in? Multiple players. There is no restriction on multiple players being out of bounds. There could be 2 players out of bounds, 3, 4, or 5. It does not specify. On a designated spot throw-in, right, only the thrower can be out of bounds. If another teammate goes out of bounds, that's a throw-in violation by rule, right? I know that's illegal. After a made basket, none of these actions has risen to the level of illegal. So in this instance, C is our correct answer. This is legal as long as the throw-in pass is released prior to the end of the official's 5-second count. That's straightforward. Now we have those 5 players out of bounds, and they're out of bounds because this is a play that this team has set up. This is a tactic that's becoming much more common right? As teams, we see it at the collegiate level, it trickles down to the high school level. If you have this situation in an end of game setting, we need to be really aware of what's illegal and what's legal, because we may have similarly, we give the ball to the thrower and a teammate steps out of bounds. They were inbounds and they step out of bounds, right? Because the team is in a tough spot and they really need a goal. And so they're going to break out, unusual tactics. And so we need to know rules and restrictions about throw-ins, and knowing rules and restrictions about throw-ins has high value for basketball officials because throw-ins happen so frequently in our game. Okay, let's look at our next test question. A1 fouls B1. Before the first free throw, A2 substitutes for A1. After the second free throw is successful, the scorer sounds the horn and A1 checks in for A3. Technical foul on A1 for attempting an illegal substitution. B, A1 can only substitute for A2. C, the substitution is legal. D, A1 is not allowed to substitute. A1 will be allowed to enter the game at the next opportunity after the clock has run. Okay, so A1 fouls B1, and they're going to be awarded before the first free throw. Let's say A1 scores. Let's say B1 scores a goal, and it will be awarded one free throw. We have a substitution that occurs. A2 substitutes in for A1. And after the free throw is successful, the scorer sounds the horn and A1 wants to come back in. So this brings up the question of a substitute. Thought I'd put you on mute. We have a situation where a substitute leaves and wants to re-enter the game. What are the restrictions on a substitute doing that? And we need to know that. It's really important. It can happen in end-of-game situations. Sometimes a coach wants their player, they're an offense, really important on offense. We want to substitute them out when we have a defensive situation, bring them back in, etc. All right, we need to know. And coaches and players do not understand this, right? So we need to be aware. And of course, during a free throw situation, what are we prone to do? Maybe take a little, we could be distracted from plays and take a little time where we disconnect or we think about other things, time remaining, etc. We lose focus on the game. But a player who substitutes out cannot return to the game until the clock properly starts. So in this instance where free throws were being attempted, the ball became live, dead, all of that, that's good. But in order for a player to return to the court as a substitute legally, the clock must have run. So in this situation, the correct answer to the question is D. A1 is not allowed to return as a substitute. They will be allowed once the game clock has run. And that's our correct answer. Okay, awesome. Hey, appreciate everybody joining today for Basketball Rules Expert. If this is the video content you're here for as a basketball official, great time to do all the things. Hit like, subscribe, and notify so you don't miss out on any of our new content. We live stream a couple of times a week. Join the conversation, join the show. Sue Mahakian, Bart Henkel, Thomas Anticola, Mark Skolnick, and Bill D'Amico. Much appreciated and much love. You want to support the show? There will be a link above and in the show notes below. All right, fantastic. I have additional video content for you available here. I made this choice. YouTube made this choice. I don't know. Make your choice. Choose wisely. We'll see you in the very next one. Take care.